I am Jarvis, your storyteller. Welcome to the Science Fiction Exploration. If you like the story, please subscribe to our channel.
The morning frost crunched under Eleanor Blackwood's boots as she made her way up the narrow mountain path. Her breath formed clouds in the crisp air, and her sample collection kit bounced against her hip with each careful step. The locals had warned her about venturing this high into the restricted zone, but after 15 years of botanical research, Eleanor had learned that the most interesting discoveries usually lay beyond warning signs. She checked her handheld scanner again. The readings were unlike anything she'd seen before, energy signatures that shouldn't exist in nature, all centered around what appeared to be a cave system ahead. Her real target was the legendary azure lotus, a flower rumored to bloom once every century with remarkable healing properties. But these readings, they demanded investigation. The cave entrance was unremarkable, just another dark mouth in the gray stone face of the mountain. What caught Eleanor's attention was the complete absence of snow or ice around it, despite the freezing temperatures. She switched on her headlamp and pulled out her thermal imaging device. The cave radiated heat like a sleeping volcano. Well, she muttered to herself, in for a penny. She stepped into the darkness. The tunnel descended at a gentle angle, its walls smoothed by what appeared to be extreme heat rather than water erosion. Eleanor's scientific mind began cataloging observations even as her instincts screamed at her to turn back. The air grew warmer, and a faint blue luminescence began to emanate from crystalline formations in the walls. After about 20 minutes of careful descent, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Eleanor's headlamp seemed inadequate against the sheer scale of the space. But it wasn't the size that made her breath catch in her throat, it was what lay at the chamber's center. Coiled in a spiral larger than a commercial airliner, scales gleaming like polished obsidian in the crystal light, was a dragon. Its head alone was the size of a small car, and even in sleep, it radiated an aura of ancient power that made Eleanor's scientific instruments go haywire. She should have run. She should have contacted authorities. She should have done anything except what she did next. But Eleanor Blackwood had spent her life studying the extraordinary, and nothing in her research had prepared her for this moment. She took a step forward, and a single scale shifted. The movement sent a cascade of soft chimes through the chamber as crystals resonated in response. The dragon's eye opened, a massive orb of swirling gold and ancient intelligence. I wondered, rumbled a voice that Eleanor felt in her bones, how long it would take for one of your kind to find me. The dragon's head rose smoothly from its coiled position, moving with impossible grace for something so massive. 3,759 years I have waited, watching your species grow, evolve, tear itself apart and rebuild. Eleanor's scientific training kicked in, helping her process the impossible situation through the lens of observation and analysis. I'm Dr. Eleanor Blackwood, she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. I'm a botanist. I was looking for a flower. A sound like distant thunder rolled through the chamber, the dragon was laughing. A flower? After all this time, I'm discovered by someone seeking a flower? The massive head lowered until it was level with Eleanor. I am Vaylor, and you, Eleanor Blackwood, have just complicated both our lives immeasurably. Before Eleanor could respond, alarms began blaring from her equipment. Her satellite phone buzzed with incoming messages, and her tablet displayed multiple warning notifications. Something about her discovery had triggered global monitoring systems. They know, Vaylor said simply. The seals I placed are broken. Your presence, your human energy signature combined with my awakening, has alerted them all. He unfurled massive wings that seemed to absorb the crystal light. Now you have a choice, Eleanor Blackwood. You can leave now, return to your world of flora and research. Or, Eleanor found herself asking, even as distant helicopters could be heard approaching. Or you can stay and learn why I chose this mountain as my resting place 3 millennia ago. Why your species has been watched, guided, and protected without ever knowing it. And why your discovery may have just set in motion events that will reshape your world. Vaylor's golden eyes held ancient secrets and, surprisingly, a hint of gentle humor. Choose quickly, little botanist. Your government's response time has improved significantly since I last observed them. Eleanor looked at the cave entrance, then back at the magnificent creature before her. Her entire life had been dedicated to discovering and understanding the extraordinary. How could she walk away from this? I choose to stay, she said firmly. I choose to learn. Vaylor's eyes gleamed with approval. Then let us begin your education quickly, for we have much to discuss and little time. Your world's powers will be converging on this location within hours, and they remember just enough of their ancient histories to fear what my awakening might mean. As if to emphasize his point, the distant sound of helicopters grew louder, and Eleanor's devices began showing multiple incoming signals. The world above was mobilizing, and at its center stood a botanist and a dragon, about to embark on an adventure that would change everything. First lesson, Vaylor rumbled as he rose to his full height, dragons are not merely creatures of fire and flight. We are guardians of secrets that your world forgot it needed keeping. And now, thanks to your curiosity and courage, those secrets are about to become very, very relevant again. The mountain shook as military helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights cutting through the morning mist. Eleanor stood in Vaylor's massive shadow as the ancient dragon led her deeper into the cave system, away from the main chamber. The crystalline walls pulsed with increasing intensity, responding to Vaylor's presence. There are other chambers, Vaylor explained as they moved through passages that seemed to widen accommodatingly before them. Places where the old knowledge was kept safe. Your people's satellites and sensors cannot penetrate these depths. Eleanor's mind raced with questions, but one pressed forward. You mentioned secrets that need keeping. What kind of secrets could be so important that a dragon would guard them for thousands of years? Before Vaylor could answer, a new sound echoed through the tunnels, the distinctive crack of breach charges. The military wasn't just searching, they were entering the cave system. Persistent, aren't they? Vaylor rumbled, sounding more amused than concerned. The knowledge I guard, Eleanor, concerns the very fabric of your reality. Humanity once possessed technologies and understanding that would seem like magic to your modern minds. But they weren't ready, the power corrupted them, nearly destroyed everything. They entered a vast circular chamber unlike anything Eleanor had seen. The walls were covered in shifting symbols that seemed to float just above the surface, and at the center stood a pillar of pure light that reached from floor to ceiling. This is an archive node, Vaylor said. One of 7 scattered across your world. They contain the sum of the ancient knowledge, waiting for humanity to be ready to receive it again. The sounds of military boots on stone grew closer. Eleanor's devices had long since gone dark, overwhelmed by the energy signatures surrounding them. Why show me this? She asked. Why trust me? Vaylor's golden eyes fixed upon her. Because you sought knowledge for its own sake. You came looking for a flower that could heal, not a weapon that could destroy. In 3 millennia of watching, I've learned that intention matters. The chamber's entrance suddenly filled with armed figures in advanced tactical gear. But before they could act, a new voice rang out. Stand down. Nobody move. Through the ranks of soldiers stepped a woman in a charcoal suit, her silver hair pulled back severely. She carried no weapon, but her authority was absolute. The soldiers immediately lowered their weapons. Director Thorne, she introduced herself to Eleanor, completely unfazed by Vaylor's massive presence. Office of Special Circumstances. Dr. Blackwood, you've stumbled into something far larger than yourself. She hasn't stumbled anywhere, Vaylor rumbled. She was chosen. Director Thorne's expression tightened. The Keepers have monitored this site for centuries. We've maintained the restricted zone, diverted attention, kept the secret. And now you choose to reveal yourself to a botanist? Eleanor's mind whirled. The Keepers? You knew about this? About him? We are the descendants of those who remembered, Thorne explained. When the ancient knowledge was sealed away, a group was chosen to watch, to protect, to prepare humanity for its eventual return. She turned to Vaylor. But it wasn't supposed to be now. The protocols are clear, emergence was scheduled for another century at least. Time grows short, Vaylor replied. The signs are there for those who know how to read them. The harbinger star approaches. Thorne's composed facade cracked slightly. That's impossible. Our calculations are based on incomplete data, Vaylor interrupted. Your ancestors understood the threat, but not its full nature. The cycle is accelerating. Eleanor looked between them. What threat? What's the harbinger star? Before either could answer, new alarms blared from the soldiers' equipment. Thorne's phone buzzed, and her face went pale as she read the message. Multiple bogies approaching, she announced. Not ours. Not any known military force. She looked up at Vaylor. They're using energy signatures we've never seen before. Not never, Vaylor corrected. Your people have seen them before, long ago. The scavengers have returned, drawn by the breaking of the seals. They sense the knowledge hidden here, and they want it. The chamber rumbled as distant explosions rocked the mountain. Eleanor's scientific mind struggled to process everything she was hearing, but one thing was becoming clear: she was now part of something far bigger than her search for a rare flower. Director Thorne, Vaylor's voice carried new urgency, your forces cannot stop what's coming. Not alone. The choice now is simple: work with us, or watch everything your organization has protected for centuries fall into the wrong hands. Thorne's response was cut off by a massive explosion from above. Through the dust and debris, strange lights began to filter down into the cave system. They moved with purpose, searching. Time to choose, Director, Vaylor pressed. The scavengers remember the ancient ways. They remember how to fight dragons. But they don't know about Eleanor. They don't know about the changes in human potential that 3 millennia of quiet evolution have wrought. Eleanor found both Thorne and Vaylor looking at her. What do you mean, changes in human potential? Why do you think I chose you, Eleanor Blackwood? Vaylor's eyes gleamed. Not just for your intentions, but for what you are. What humanity is becoming. The flower you sought? It doesn't just heal, it awakens. And you, my curious botanist, are about to discover exactly what that means. The lights grew closer, and with them came a sound that seemed to scrape against reality itself. Humanity's past and future were converging in this underground chamber, and Eleanor Blackwood, scientist, explorer, and now possibly something more, stood at the center of it. The archive node's pillar of light pulsed erratically as the scavengers' energy weapons bombarded the mountain's outer defenses. Eleanor stood transfixed as Vaylor used one massive claw to trace symbols in the air, leaving trails of golden light that coalesced into a three-dimensional map of the solar system. The Harbinger star isn't a star at all, Vaylor explained, his voice resonating with ancient power. It's a vessel, vast beyond human comprehension, carrying those who originally gave humanity its advanced knowledge. They return now to judge whether your species has matured enough to receive the full legacy they left behind. Director Thorne's tactical teams were setting up defensive positions around the chamber's perimeter. And these scavengers, she asked, her composure intact despite the chaos. They're trying to steal this legacy before the judgment? They are the fallen, Vaylor rumbled. Those who failed their own judgment eons ago. They survive by stealing the technological heritage of other species, parasites feeding on the achievements of others. Another explosion rocked the chamber. Through the dust, Eleanor spotted something that made her gasp, tendrils of metallic liquid seeping through the cracks in the walls, probing, searching. They're inside the mountain structure, Thorne announced, checking her tablet. Some kind of self-replicating nanomaterial. Our countermeasures are useless. Eleanor felt a strange tingling in her hands, a warmth that spread up her arms. The crystalline formations in the walls seemed to pulse in sync with her heartbeat. "Valor, you said something about human potential, about changes in our evolution. What's happening to me?" The dragon's golden eyes fixed upon her. "The flower you sought, the azure lotus, was no natural evolution. It was a tool, created by the Ancient Ones, meant to activate dormant genetic potential in humans who were ready. For centuries, the Keepers have maintained the restricted zone not just to protect me, but to protect the flower's growing sites. Which you've been studying for the past decade," Thorn added, looking at Eleanor with new understanding. "Every expedition, every sample collection, you've been exposed to trace amounts. It's been changing you gradually, preparing you." The metallic tendrils were spreading across the chamber floor now, forming complex geometric patterns. Eleanor watched in fascination as they seemed to shy away from her immediate vicinity. "The scavengers use technology to imitate what should come naturally," Valor explained. "They force their way into realities they don't understand. But you, Eleanor Blackwood, have the potential to interface with the ancient knowledge as it was meant to be accessed, through consciousness itself." Eleanor's hands were glowing now, emitting the same blue light as the crystals. "What am I supposed to do?" "Trust your instincts," Valor rumbled. "The flower didn't change you, it awakened what was already there. Your species has been evolving towards this moment for millennia." The metallic tendrils suddenly surged forward, forming into humanoid shapes. Their surfaces rippled like mercury, reflecting the chamber's light in disturbing ways. Through gaps in their liquid metal forms, Eleanor caught glimpses of alien anatomies that defied comprehension. Director Thorn's forces opened fire, but their weapons had little effect. The scavengers moved with liquid grace, their forms adapting to each attack. They were heading straight for the archive node. Eleanor felt the power building within her, resonating with the crystal chambers and the node itself. Knowledge flooded her consciousness, not as information, but as pure understanding. The Ancient Ones hadn't just given humanity technology, they had seeded the potential for humanity to evolve beyond technology. "The node," she said, her voice carrying new authority. "It's not just a database. It's a key." "Yes," Valor confirmed. "One of 7, meant to unlock humanity's next stage of evolution. But only when the species was ready, only when individuals could emerge who could handle the power responsibly." The scavengers were almost at the node now. Eleanor stepped forward, raising her glowing hands. The crystal formations in the walls blazed in response, and the archive node's pillar of light bent toward her like a tree leaning into the sun. "That's impossible," Thorn whispered. "The node's quantum structure is fixed." "Not to her," Valor said with satisfaction. "Watch closely, Director. You're about to see why I chose to wake when I did, why this moment had to come now." Eleanor felt the node's energy flow through her, merging with her consciousness. The scavengers froze in their tracks as reality itself seemed to hold its breath. In that moment of crystal clarity, Eleanor Blackwood understood her role in the grand design, not just as a recipient of ancient knowledge, but as a bridge between what humanity was and what it could become. The chamber filled with blinding light as Eleanor began to rewrite the rules of reality itself, just as the Ancient Ones had planned all along. The age of sleeping dragons and hidden knowledge was ending. The true test of humanity's worth was about to begin. The mountain trembled as reality rippled around Eleanor. The scavenger's liquid metal forms writhed and twisted, trying to resist the fundamental changes she was imposing on the fabric of spacetime within the chamber. Director Thorn and her forces stood transfixed, watching as the botanist they dismissed as an accidental intruder rewrote the laws of physics with newfound power. "The other nodes," Eleanor spoke, her voice layered with harmonics that seemed to echo from different dimensions. "They're awakening too, aren't they?" Valor's wings unfurled, casting shadows that moved independently of the light. "Yes. Across the world, 6 other humans are experiencing similar awakenings. The time of separation is ending." Through her enhanced perception, Eleanor could sense them, points of brilliant consciousness flickering to life across the globe. A quantum physicist in Tokyo, her calculations suddenly explaining impossibilities. A musician in Rio, his compositions bending reality. A young architect in Nairobi, her designs reshaping matter itself. The scavengers launched a desperate assault, their liquid metal forms combining into a massive serpentine structure that coiled around the archive node. But Eleanor understood now, the node wasn't just a repository of knowledge, it was a test. The Ancient Ones had left their legacy not as technology to be stolen, but as potential to be earned. Director Thorne, Eleanor called out, the restricted zone, it wasn't just hiding the truth, was it? It was protecting humanity until we were ready to face it. Thorne nodded grimly. The Keepers have watched for generations as humanity slowly developed the capacity to handle what was left for us. We didn't just guard secrets, we guided evolution itself through careful manipulation of exposure to sites like this. But you never imagined it would happen like this, Valor rumbled, amusement in his ancient voice. You expected a gradual awakening, controlled and contained by your protocols and procedures. Instead, you get this moment, chaos and transformation all at once. The scavengers' combined form struck at Eleanor, but reality itself seemed to bend around her. The liquid metal froze in mid-motion, crystallizing into patterns that matched the chamber walls. Through her connection to the node, Eleanor could sense the beings within the metal shells, ancient, desperate, and so very afraid. They're running from something, she realized. The Harbinger star, it's not just coming to judge humanity, is it? No, Valor confirmed. It comes to judge all of us. The scavengers seek to steal what humanity has earned because their own worlds face extinction. The Ancient Ones are returning to evaluate not just your species, but how your species chooses to handle power. The chamber's crystals pulsed with increasing intensity as Eleanor processed this revelation. Through her expanded consciousness, she could feel the Harbinger star approaching, a vast construct of impossible geometry, folding space as it moved through the solar system. Director Thorne's tablet suddenly lit up with urgent notifications. Multiple contacts entering the atmosphere, she reported. Energy signatures matching the scavengers, but orders of magnitude more powerful. They're everywhere. The main invasion force, Valor growled. These few were just scouts, testing humanity's defenses. Now they come in force, desperate to seize the nodes before the Ancient Ones arrive. Eleanor looked at the crystallized scavengers, seeing not enemies but refugees. In their liquid metal forms, she read the story of their civilization's fall, how they had failed their own test from the Ancient Ones, how their world had been stripped of its evolutionary potential as punishment. They weren't evil, they were surviving the only way they knew how. There has to be another way, she said, her consciousness expanding further, touching the minds of the other awakened humans across the planet. Through their combined perception, she could see the full scope of both threat and opportunity. The Ancient Ones left us 7 nodes, she continued, understanding flowing through her. 7 points of transformation. Not just to unlock humanity's potential, but to give us a choice about how to use it. Valor's golden eyes gleamed with approval. Now you begin to understand the true test. Power without compassion breeds only more scavengers. The Ancient Ones want to know if humanity can rise above that cycle. The mountain shook more violently as the invasion force descended. Through the crystalline walls, Eleanor could see thousands of liquid metal forms raining from the sky, each containing desperate beings seeking salvation at any cost. She reached out to the other awakened humans, their minds linking across continents. In Tokyo, the physicist understood the mathematics of mercy. In Rio, the musician heard the harmony in redemption. In Nairobi, the architect saw the structure of shared destiny. Director Thorne, Eleanor said, standing straighter as power coursed through her, call off your forces. The real battle isn't going to be fought with weapons. Then how? Thorne demanded, even as she signaled her teams to stand down. Eleanor smiled as the chamber filled with light that seemed to flow from dimensions beyond human perception. We're going to offer them a choice, the same choice the Ancient Ones offered us. Not conquest, but evolution. Not theft, but transformation. The chamber's crystals sang with possibility as humanity's first awakened prepared to face their true test. The age of isolation was ending, and the real question wasn't whether humanity would survive the coming chaos, but who they would choose to become in facing it. The sky above the mountain blazed with otherworldly light as thousands of scavenger ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. Eleanor stood at the center of the crystal chamber, her consciousness linked with the other 6 awakened humans across the planet. Through their shared perception, she could feel the fear and desperation radiating from the invading forces, centuries of survival instinct driving them toward what they saw as their last hope. Vaylor's massive form coiled protectively around the archive node, his ancient power harmonizing with the chamber's crystals. "The Harbinger star enters the solar system," he announced. The Ancient Ones approached to witness humanity's choice. Director Thorne's global communications network crackled with reports of liquid metal armies forming in major cities. "Military forces worldwide are mobilizing," she reported, her composed exterior masking deep concern. "If we don't act quickly, this becomes a global war that no one can win." Eleanor closed her eyes, feeling the power of all 7 nodes pulsing through the planetary grid of ley lines that the Ancient Ones had established millennia ago. The other awakened humans reached out to her, each bringing their unique perspective to the shared consciousness they now inhabited. "We see the pattern," the physicist in Tokyo shared through their link. "The mathematics of redemption are clear. The song of unity wants to be heard," the musician in Rio added, his consciousness translating cosmic forces into pure harmony. "We can build a bridge between what was and what could be," the architect in Nairobi contributed, her vision encompassing structures that transcended physical reality. Eleanor opened her eyes, which now shimmered with the same crystalline light as the chamber walls. "The Ancient Ones didn't just leave us knowledge," she announced, her voice carrying to all corners of the chamber. "They left us a template for transformation. The scavengers don't need to steal it, we can share it." The liquid metal forms that had been frozen in the chamber began to resonate with her words. Through their crystallized shells, Eleanor could see the beings inside beginning to understand. "For too long, they've survived by taking what others earned," Vaylor rumbled. "But survival alone is not enough. The Ancient Ones return now to see if humanity has learned to thrive, and to share that knowledge." The chamber's crystals pulsed with increasing intensity as Eleanor and the other awakened humans began to channel power through the node network. Above the Earth, the Harbinger star emerged from its dimensional fold, a vast construct of impossible geometry that defied human comprehension. Through their shared consciousness, Eleanor and her counterparts began to weave a new pattern into reality itself. The knowledge within the nodes wasn't just information or technology, it was a key to unlocking evolutionary potential in any species ready to receive it. "We choose to share," Eleanor declared, her voice echoing with the power of all 7 awakened humans. "Not because we are weak, but because true strength lies in lifting others up alongside ourselves." The chamber erupted with light as she released the node's full power, not as a weapon, but as an offering. The crystallized scavengers began to transform, their liquid metal shells becoming translucent as the beings inside experienced their own awakening. Director Thorne watched in amazement as the invading forces across the globe stopped their advance. Through her communications network, reports flooded in of the liquid metal armies transforming, their desperate aggression giving way to something new. "They're evolving," Thorne whispered. "All of them." Vaylor's ancient eyes gleamed with approval. This was always the test, not whether humanity could defend the knowledge left for them, but whether they would choose to share it when the time came. The Harbinger star pulsed with energy that could be felt across the solar system. The Ancient Ones had returned not to judge, but to witness. Humanity had not just proven worthy of the legacy left for them, they had transcended it. Eleanor felt the barriers between species dissolving as a new age of understanding dawned. The scavenger's consciousness joined the network of awakened minds, their centuries of accumulated knowledge and experience becoming part of a greater whole. "This is just the beginning," she said, watching as the crystal chamber's light spread across the earth like a dawn of new possibility. "We've unlocked something greater than power, we've discovered the true potential of unity." Valor stretched his wings, casting shadows that danced with new purpose. "For 3,759 years, I waited to see if humanity would reach this moment. Now my watch can end, not because my task is complete, but because it has transformed into something far greater." The mountain that had housed secrets for millennia now became a beacon, its light reaching toward the stars. Above, the Harbinger star pulsed with approval as Earth entered a new phase of existence, one where the boundaries between species, between technology and consciousness, between past and future, began to blur into a tapestry of shared destiny. The end.